Hi, this is Kevin B, and now I'm going over the structure of the eye. So right here, I use a bowl to make the structure of the eye. Okay. First of all, the eye is going to get some stimulus, like light go into the cornea. Like this, like cornea, go straight in the cornea. A pupil, so it's like the small thing. And then we got lenses, like lenses. And finally, we got iris. Like there is a ring muscle that control like the pupil, and the lenses. Like the muscle around the pupil, like do accommodation. Like adjust the thing that we see, or like how clear it should be. And then we got vitreous humor. Like some water. Some liquid inside our eye. At the back, we got retina first. It's a surface that the inner visual surface inside our eye, like a big visual surface inside our eye. And also, the main function for retina is like to absorb light, process images, and send visual info to the brain. The object or anything that we see will like reject on retina, and mostly fovea, which is like is a point that contains cones or central visual point of retina, like the middle of the central visual point. That's where we see the clearest, on retina. Next, we got rods and cones. There are like two types of retinal receptors. That rods only reset black and white, and cones reset colorful images. So like rods is like this. It's not the color. It's like the rods is like very thin, and cones are very thicker than rods. Like this. But rods is only like responsible for black and white, and cones is for colorful images. And there are more than 100 to 125 millions of rods, and there's like only 5 to 6.4 millions of cones. So that's meaning rods is more than cones. Polar cells and ganglion cells. So when enough cones and rods fire, they activate the next layer of bipolar cells. And like if there's enough bipolar cells fire, the next layer of ganglion cells is activated. The ganglion cells is connected to optic nerve, and which is finally sent to the brain. The blind spot that which only occurs that when optic nerve leaves the retina, and there's no rods and cones response, so we cannot see at that point. And for optic nerve, so it's like impulses from the left side of each retina go to the left hemisphere of the brain, and right and to right. We got split brain, but it's kind of different. And the crossing point that two signal crosses is called optic chiasm. Spot, like spot where the nerves cross each other. And also optic chiasm, have two pathways to travel. One was the LGN, which stands for lateral geniculate nucleus, like process visual signals for the thalamus. It's just like the color form contrast motion. And the second one is superior colliculus. It's a perception of motion and coordination of visual input with other senses. And we see things we just not randomly like process of the things that we saw. We have feature detectors, so it contains first shapes of the objects and angles, like from which angles you see the object, and also of course the movement, like how do the object move. Visual perception is a combination of all features, like vertical lines, curves, or motion, and etc. Another processing way is called parallel processing. Like, we saw the object's color, depth, and movement, like to determine the visual contents that our brain should interpret. Parallel processing processing color, like with the wavelength, like the Q, like different colors, wavelengths, like we can detect them and the brain will respond. And after the optic nerve respond and transfer the information, the visual information to our brain, like action potential, like the neuron fires, and it goes to thalamus. Where primary visual cortex is in, and also it's going to travel to like occipital lobe, like occipital lobe, which also contains primary visual cortex, so that we can see things.